Hey guys, wow, it's hot this summer, isn't it? I mean, really hot. Wow, some of you around the country are going, what is happening in this crazy summer? But we're looking forward to the fall, and we're looking forward to specifically August 8 and 9, our national conference this year in Dallas-Fort Worth. We would love to have you join us. Check it out at christiansengaged.org. Hey, we're replaying messages from our last conference. Congressman Nathaniel Moran from Tyler, Texas, incredible story, such a great friend of our ministry, was there this last year. He represents District 1 out of Tyler, Texas, and that surrounding area in Washington, D.C. A strong believer. His dad was a pastor. He went to run for county judge in that area and then ran for Congress. And he talks about Jeremiah 1:5, emphasizing that God has a unique calling for every one of us, and that as we respond to that calling, even in humble beginnings and in our weaknesses, God can meet us and he will use our life. He really pushes us in this message to not wait, to be like the disciples that put down everything. They left their nets and followed Jesus, right? When there's a moment for you to step into a calling or destiny or the purposes of God, do it. That's Nathaniel's message. We're, again, very, very thankful for Congressman Nathaniel Moran. Christians Engaged is a nonpartisan Christian ministry. We don't endorse political candidates or parties, but we're thankful for godly men and women around this country that work in county government, state government, and federal government. And we're honored to have Congressman Moran speak to us at our conference last year. Check it out. Here at Christians Engaged, we are on a quest to see every American Christian take stewardship of their life, their nation, and this generation. Can you imagine a world where every Christian in this country did three simple things? Pray, vote, and engage. And what if we did those ongoing? It would totally shift our nation. That's what we're doing here at Christians Engaged. Over the last 5 years, we've built a standing army of Christians that are saying, I want to pray, vote, and engage ongoing and be leaders in my community. We're just getting started, folks. Here at Conversations with Christians Engaged, join us every week as we take you in depth in interviews with government officials, ministry leaders, subject leader experts to awaken and empower you to do those three things ongoing. I'm Bunny Pounds. I'm the president and founder of Christians Engaged. I spent 16 years in political consulting working for members of Congress and other candidates before starting this ministry. And my co-host, Ben Quine, our biblical worldview expert and our vice president. Come on a journey with us every week. We're here to help you pray, vote, and engage.
Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated. The Lord's blessing to each one of you. I understand that you have already talked this morning about praying and voting, and this afternoon we're going to focus on engagement. Are you ready to engage with the political and cultural and spiritual battles in this world? Because I want to share with you today the story of my life and how the Lord put a pathway in front of me, a pathway of service, a pathway of engagement. And I hope that when we're done with this next 25 minutes that you will be ready to engage in the way that the Lord has called you to do. And I want to challenge you to three things as we talk about engagement this morning. I want to challenge you to find your call, to follow your call, and to fulfill your call. If you will find what God has in your life, and if you will follow it, and if you pursue it in the way that he wants you to, you will fulfill it. And in that process, you will engage in the way that he has for you to engage. So find, follow, and fulfill. Those are the three things that I want you to take away from today. But let's start with finding our call, because I love the scripture from Jeremiah that says in Jeremiah 1:5, what does he remind us of? Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. I want to remind you this morning that every person in this room has a great call in this life. Before you were formed in your mother's womb, I don't care if you were 2 in this room, if you were 1, if you're 1 month old, if some of you in this room may not yet be born. Or if you're 90 years old, God has a great calling for your life, and he called you before he formed you, just like the prophet Jeremiah. And it is a great thing for us to know that God called us despite the fact that he knew us, because that's where it started, right? He knew us. When I look in the mirror, I look at myself and I think, man, this is just a country boy that grew up in a single-wide trailer home in East Texas, that shared a twin bed with a twin brother till the age of 10. Who am I to be in Congress? Who am I to be doing the things that the Lord would present to me? And I look in that mirror and I know the sins of my life. I know the difficulties of my life. I know the things that somebody on the outside would say, well, you're not good enough to do that. And let me just tell you, the Lord has a purpose and a plan for you, despite that. And despite knowing who you are and all your failures, your weaknesses, and all the things about you and about me, he still called you. And he still appointed you for something great in this life. And every one of your callings, here's the other thing I want to remind you of. Every one of your callings in this life has equal and eternal value. It does not matter if you are on Fox News at night. It does not matter if you're cleaning the toilets. Your call has an equal and eternal value in the sight of God, so long as you are doing it for his glory, right? So long as you're doing it for his glory and not your own, and it is your call, because what is the most important call in this life? It is your call. It is not a call generally. It's whatever the Lord has called you to do. That is the most important call. And I'm going to tell you some stories in my life about my calling to begin this process, because you got to find that call. For me, I found that call specifically and directly and very clearly in the 4th grade. I knew in 1984, as Ronald Reagan was running for his second term in office, my dad was taking me around. I already knew this in my spirit, and we were engaging in the political battles of that time. I knew as a little 4th grader, when I cast that mock ballot in my 4th grade class, that I was called to get into public service. I had that confirmed when a preacher came back and laid hands on me in the back row of an evangelistic meeting on a Thursday night, laid hands on me when I was trying to not pay attention as a little kid. It happens sometimes on Thursday night church. And he put his hands on me, and he spoke directly into my life and said, you have been called to public service. I knew it. It shocked my parents, who had heard me for years say, when people asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would say, I want to be the president. Now, that's what you say when you're a young kid and you don't know how to describe being in politics. You say, I want to be the president. And my mom, she would come back behind me and say, now, son, you're going to have to figure out something more realistic to tell people. I love my mom. I love my dad, both of them. But they didn't see the vision that God saw in that moment. And my mom tells me today, she said, you know what ultimately got me to stop telling you to stop saying that was the next time I heard somebody ask you, what do you want to be? And what was my reply? I want to be the president. Now, she said, you were stubborn, and I knew in that moment I might as well just give up telling you couldn't do that. And I was so glad about that. And then the encouragement came through that calling. But it didn't just stop in the 4th grade. It continued throughout my life, that the Lord continued to plant that seed and those opportunities to prepare for public service today. I have a twin brother that shares a genetic code with me. And you know what he's doing? He's an engineer. You know why? That's his calling. That's the calling he has in this life. But you know what the greater calling is? To be a minister for the gospel of Jesus Christ. To use whatever our vocation is to do what he needs us to do in this life, to point other people to that. I will tell you that I almost lost the calling that I had when I was coming out of college. I was doing missions work in Alaska, and I came back from a summer of Alaska missions work. This was right after I was finishing my MBA and before I went to law school. And the Alaska Assemblies of God missionary pastor, who's over all the Alaskan missions, Jim Schultz, called me, and he said, Nathaniel, I want you to come to Alaska and be the missionary pastor of Emonic, Alaska, a church in the way western Alaska. And I had just gotten off a great summer of missionary work, and don't you know, missionary work is really important. It's really important. And I said, wow, my parents had helped start a Bible college in East Texas. My dad was a minister. We had done missions work together. Bible college education was their training. And so I thought, man, I want to make my parents proud. I want to serve the kingdom. I'm going to go do missions work. And I said, yes, Jim, I will come. I will definitely come do that work. I couldn't sleep for a week. You know why? Because it wasn't my call. I could feel the Spirit checking me inside. And I called Jim back the next week and I said, Jim, I've made a mistake. I can't come in January to be the missionary pastor because that's not my call. I've known since I was a young kid that my call is to go into public service. And I know the next step means go to law school. And to Jim's credit, he said, Nathaniel, if that is not your call, then don't you dare come up here. We don't want you. He said, the last thing we need is somebody to come to Monica, Alaska when it's not their call. And let me just tell you, the last place I want to be in January of any year is in Monica, Alaska, if it's not your call, right? So this reminded me and reinforced in me that there is a specific call for my life. And I shouldn't look to the calls of other people, and I shouldn't compare it, and I shouldn't say, well, that's a ministry call, mine's not. Let me tell you, being in Congress is a ministry. It should be a ministry, right? We should be doing the things that we're doing for the purpose, the eternal purpose that God has for us. So I want to check your spirit today and say, do you know what your call is? There's a few practical things. If you don't, practical things I can leave you with. Look at your skills. Look at your personality. Look at your passions, your experiences, your education, your opportunities. And then make sure that you're engaged in prayer and solitude and listening to the Holy Spirit as He calls you into this. Because in September of 2020, almost 15 months before I ran for Congress, I told my wife I needed some prayer and solitude. And for 3 days, I spent days every day in prayer and solitude and came out of those 3 days of prayer and solitude. And I said to my wife, hold on to your seat, but I think the Lord's calling us to run for Congress. That was about 14 months before my predecessor decided he was going to vacate that seat. I had no idea. She had no idea. I don't know if anybody else had any idea, but the Lord had an idea. And He said, prepare your heart now and prepare to run for Congress and be ready if and when that opportunity comes up. Had He not done that, had I not been engaged in prayer solitude, I would have not been ready to run in that next year, 15 months later. So find your call in this life. Find the thing that God has made for you to do. And step 2, follow your call. And here's a few secrets to following your call. Don't wait. Show up. How many people say, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. I got some other things I got to do. Mark 4:19 through 20 says this. When the Lord was talking to Peter and Andrew, He said, come follow me right on the banks of the Sea of Galilee. Come follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. The next 2 words are what I want you to remember. Scripture says, at once they left their nets and followed Him. Do not wait. If you know what the Lord has called you to, do not wait. Engage. Get after it. Be willing to do the small things. This is number 2. When the Lord calls you to do it, be willing to do the small things. Be willing to do the things that maybe are not the prominent things, because sometimes we get caught up in this idea of prominence, and it is the wrong idea. When I first started out in politics, I block walked. I was a precinct chair. I was an election judge. I got involved in civic organizations just to give back to the community, to follow the great commandment, to love God and to love people by serving God and serving people. And I tried to find every way that I could to do that without a position. Do you know that leadership is action, is not position? It's engagement wherever the Lord has given you that opportunity. If you wait, by the way, until opportunity presents itself to prepare and engage, you are too late. And remember these words out of Luke 6:10. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest in little will also be dishonest in much. I love the quote, there are no small parts, just small actors. The Lord has a great part for you. Are you going to be engaged? Are you going to embrace it? Or are you going to be a small actor and say, well, I don't think that's good enough. That's not going to get me on TV enough. That's not going to give me enough prominence. I'm not going to get enough social media likes. The Lord doesn't care about that. The Lord cares about you playing your part in the cultural and political and spiritual battles of this day with the skill set and the passions that He has given you in your life. I want to tell you the first time that I ran for city council is the third thing I want to tell you about following this call is you got to, besides preparing for the opportunities, when the opportunities come, you have to seize those opportunities. And a lot of times those opportunities come and we get scared, don't we? We're like, Lord, I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of embarrassment. I'm afraid of rejection. That's the devil speaking to you. Believe that the Lord has a pathway of success and victory for you in the calling that He has laid before you. In 2005, the city council seat in my home district in Tyler came open. I got a call from my brother-in-law on a Friday night, and he said, hey, you've been talking. I was out in California doing some work. He said, you've been talking a lot about running for office. When are you going to run for office? And immediately I felt the Holy Spirit prick me again and say, now's the time. And so I spent a couple days praying about it, and I said, you know what? Now is the time. It's open. I need to go. I need to not sit back. I need to seize this opportunity. So I called my dad on a Friday night, and I said, I'm in. I'm running for city council. Sunday morning, we wake up to the newspaper that has a huge article about another guy running for city council in that seat. That's a great guy, has a great reputation, has done a lot of great work. And my dad called me immediately. And I love my father, and I would love to give you 1,000 hours of testimony about the great spiritual advice he gave me. But he called me and he said, I don't think you can win this, Nathaniel. And maybe you ought to just wait. And I said, Dad, I know that you're well-meaning, but the Lord has placed this in my heart for this time, and I will not relent. I'm going forward. I jumped in, and 2 months later, 2.5 months later, I won with over 80% of the vote. But here's what I'll also tell you about that. It only took 301 votes. That's it. I had 15,000 constituents in the city of Tyler, 301 votes. So think about that. When you are fearful about the opportunities that present themselves for city council or school board or whatever, you can get involved. You can win, work, follow that call, and you never know where that door is going to lead. And I knew that was my vocational call, but I also knew this. I needed to fulfill that call. He started it. He gave me that victory. I needed to fulfill it. This is step 3. Philippians 1:6 says, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ. But we have several calls. We have a faith call, a family call, and a vocational call. And I will tell you, I'm going to challenge you in the next 11 minutes as we close out, that one of the most important things you have to do when you find that call, when you begin to follow that call, in order for you to fulfill that call, you have got to keep the priority of your callings straight. You have got to keep the faith calling on top, the family calling next, and your vocational calling, though very, very important, it has to come last. It has to be submissive to those other two. Let me tell you the story about how that worked for me, because I just told you about the calling to get on the city council in 2005 in Tyler. And this was a great opportunity. At the time, I was a lawyer at the largest law firm in Tyler, and I was becoming a partner, and things were going good. We had our first child in 2005, and 2 years later, we found out that child we had in 2005 when I got elected was deaf. Now, life throws you some curveballs, doesn't it? We didn't know what to do with a deaf child. We struggled to figure out, what do we need to do best for Caleb, which, by the way, means courageous. I love that. And I remind him of that all the time. I'm like, you're one of the 2 guys that came back with the great report, man. Your name means courageous, and God has a great call for you. I've got 4 kids, 19, 17, 8, and 7. My wife took a 9-year break in between. I'm not sure I'd recommend that. We love our 4 kids, 2 girls and 2 boys, but the reason why we waited was because when Caleb's needs came up, we thought we need to devote our time and attention to his education and upbringing, and it's going to take more time than we have to give right now, so we're going to delve in. But we got to looking around, what are we going to do for Caleb? We found a school in California that was the top school in the nation for deaf kids to teach them how to speak. And we wanted him to learn how to speak, even though he was severe to profoundly deaf in both ears. We went out there and they said, you know what? There's one school in Texas that has the same opportunities that we present, but it's down in Houston. Now, this is 2008 by this time, and we knew that we needed to get to Houston for our son, Caleb. But I'm in my second term now as a city council member. It didn't matter. I sent out 100 resumes to get a job down in Houston, a legal job. I would have taken any job down there. 100 resumes. I felt pretty good about myself. I'm a city council member. I'm a partner. I'm thinking this will be easy. About 9 months later, January 29 of January 2009, you know how many calls I've gotten back? 0. You know, when we try to do things on our own, it just doesn't work out. And it's at that point we gave it over to the Lord and we said, Lord, you're going to have to do this work. You're going to have to do it. We cannot do it. My wife, now with 2 kids, began to drive to and from the special school for the deaf in Houston, 3 hours and 15 minutes one way, 1 to 2 times a week, to get speech therapy for my son. We just decided, well, I guess, Lord, you're going to keep us here in Tyler. I signed up to run for another term on the city council in February. That election was in May. We just decided, okay, Lord, we've given it to you. We thought you wanted us in Houston, but no job came. 2 weeks before that election in May, again, my wife's been going back and forth every week. That is a long day, a long day. 2 weeks before that election, I get a call out of the blue from my mock trial partner in law school who said, Nathaniel, I heard you were looking for a job in Houston. And I said, absolutely. I said, hey, by the way, what kind of law do you guys practice? And he said, bankruptcy and oil and gas. And I'm like, well, that's funny. I've never practiced any bankruptcy or oil and gas. It didn't matter. The Lord made the way. 48 hours later, I had a job in Houston, Texas. Now, this is 2 weeks before the election. You can't take your name off the ballot by that time. So I called the school. I told the guy, I said, I can't come at least for a month. I called the school and we said, hey, do you still have an opening? They only had 32 students in this school. She said, we have one opening. It happens to be in your son's grade. And because you've been faithful to come down here for the last 3 months, we already have all the testing. We know your family. We know it's going to be a great fit. We will save that spot for you if you can get down here in the next month. But now I'm presented with this question. Lord, you call me to this vocation of public service. What am I supposed to do with this? You also call me to be a member of the faith community that puts my faith in you, and then also faithful to my family. How do I reconcile all these things? There are critical times when you have to lay that vocation down. There are seasons for all of it. We know that. But at this point, it was a critical junction, and the Lord was saying to me, are you willing to lay down the thing that you love the most? Are you willing to lay down even the vocation that I've called you to for your faith and your family? Well, when the Lord tells you that and asks you that, the answer better be simple, and it better be yes. So what happened? 2 weeks later, I got elected to the city council. 10 days later, I got sworn in at the age of 34 as mayor pro tem in Tyler, Texas. I am proud to tell you today that I am the shortest serving mayor pro tem ever in the history of the city of Tyler. Because 10 minutes later, after I got appointed, I held a press conference and resigned. And 2 weeks later, we were in Houston. Now, the Lord cleared the path, but we have to engage. We have to engage where he wants us to engage, and when and how. That's the question. When and how would you have us serve? And at this moment, his question to me was, are you willing to lay it down? I remember telling my wife, well, I guess that's all the public service the Lord ever had in mind for me. Because you know, when you get out of public life, people forget you in a heartbeat. They do. And somebody else fills that gap. And the moment we think we're too irreplaceable or too important is the moment we are misguided. The Lord can use a lot of different vessels, but we were willing to lay it down. So we moved to Houston. And here's some miraculous things about this. We moved to Houston, and guess what? My son's school in all of Houston was located 4 blocks from the job that I got. And on the 41st floor of the AIG building on Allen Parkway in Waugh, I could literally look down on his playground. Now, you tell me the Lord isn't weaving that together. You and I could not make that happen. But the miracle happened as a result of that in Caleb's life and in my life, to engage in the way that God would have me engage. Because in Caleb's life, he was 4.5 when we went down there. He could not speak at all. 3 years later, he was speaking in full sentences. A miracle of the Lord. He graduated high school. That's right. Give the Lord glory for that. He graduated high school last year. He has a job. He's independent. He's saving money. He's going to school. He's doing the things we would want him to be doing today. And we are so blessed because he was courageous in that moment. But the Lord's story for my life didn't end there either. 3 years later, we came back to Tyler. I got back engaged just serving people in the community in 2012. And 4 years later, in 2016, we had a county judge removed from office. And I will tell you, my wife and I have had this conversation before, and I told her, one position you can be assured I'll never run for is county judge. I would just tell you right now, be careful what you say you're never going to do. Because when that person got removed, the 4 members of the commissioner's court all called me independently without knowing the other ones had called me. And they said, Nathaniel, we want you to come be the next county judge. We've got to make an appointment. And the reason why we want you to come be the county judge is because 7 years before, in 2009, you were willing to walk away from this position. You were willing to put your family first and your faith first and not worry about power, position, or prominence. And so immediately within 2 weeks, I was the county judge. That was in 2016, and that's what led me to the opportunity to be in Congress 6 years later. Had I not done that, I would have not been in Congress. So you can rewind. I can rewind 15 years, 15, 16, 17 years now to 2007 when we found out Caleb was deaf and trace the Lord's hand through that pathway. The pathway of engagement. Let me encourage you, you may not know what the Lord has for you exactly, or you may think you know how it's going to happen. As you look back, you know He's been faithful. He's been faithful to bring you to that place because you have followed Him. And I want to conclude with just a couple of things that tell you you're going to have to overcome as you do this. Three things you're going to have to overcome to fulfill your call. In a minute and a half, I'm going to close. You're going to have to overcome your past decisions, your present circumstances, and future obstacles. That exists for every one of us. It's different for every one of us, but you have to overcome those. I guarantee you've made some bad decisions in the past. I guarantee your circumstances are not ideal in your mind for doing what God has called you to do. And I guarantee there will be obstacles in this life as you choose to fulfill that call. But God is faithful to complete the work that He has done in you. I guarantee it. But at some point, your faith, your family, and your vocational calling will be challenged, and you must choose correctly. Choose the Lord above all things. Pursue the path that He has for you. And remember, He has created you for something great in this life. He has created you for a great purpose. And remember these words in Ephesians, and this is the ending challenge for you when the Apostle Paul says this. As a prisoner for the Lord, then I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Find your call. Follow your call. Fulfill your call. Be worthy of that thing, that great eternal thing that God has called you to. And Godspeed on your journey. Great things await. God be glorified in all of it. Thank you.
Wow, wasn't that message so encouraging? I love the part where Congressman Moran talks about prioritizing his family even above his service. He was the mayor pro tem there in Tyler, and he gave up it all to move to Houston to take care of his family and his son and to get him the help he needed. And what happened? few years later, he's county judge and now a U.S. representative representing the people of that area. You know, when we put God first and then we put family first, he will do something great with our life in our communities if we're willing to step out. You know, so often we talk about all the problems in Washington, D.C., and we feel like, man, we can't do anything, right? It's just such a big thing. But let me just say, you can know your member of Congress. You can know your U.S. senators. They can know your name. They can interact with you at town halls, on the phone, with their staff. You can make your voice be heard. But even more so, you can make a deep impact in your city, in your county, in your area. We're here to train you at Christians Engaged. That's why August 8 and 9 in Dallas-Fort Worth, we're having our on-ramp to civic engagement and re-recording that. It's going to be incredible. This year, we will have Kelly Shackelford from First Liberty Institute, Dr. Kyle Lance Martin from Time to Revive, our evangelism partners. Former Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler from Missouri will join us for this re-recording. And Friday night, we're going to have worship, prayer. Pastor Ryan Binkley from Create Church, Doug Stringer from Somebody Cares International, and I will be speaking and inspiring us to go beyond our comfort zone in this incredible hour. We have an opportunity, church, to step out in faith and be the leaders that God's called us to be. It is not a time to sit on your couch and binge watch Netflix, okay? It is a time to step out and to do something of impact in your world. I just want to say thank you for everybody for supporting this ministry, being a part of our life, and we want to see you August 8 and 9 at Create Church. Register at our website, christiansengage.org. We will see you there. Thank you so much for joining us for this incredible program today. We are so happy to be in your life. Have you shared this? Have you subscribed? Have you reviewed our podcast? Please share this with other people and help us get the word out that Christians are getting empowered around this nation. Step 1 to join Christians Engage is take our pledge to pray, vote, and engage on our website at christiansengage.org. Every week, we'll teach you how to pray for government. We will send voting reminders around every election, and we'll help you engage more for America. Step 2, take one of our classes. Have you taken our On-Ramp to Civic Engagement or Biblical Worldview or the Leadership of Nehemiah or Biblical Conduct? We have so many classes, including a full campaign school that you can plug into right now on our classes page. Step 3, hey, it's time to get involved in campaigns, advocacy, registering more Christian voters, activating your church. Every Christian needs to get off the sidelines and make a difference. We are here to mentor you into your place of leadership. That's what we do every day at Christians Engage. So reach out to us for help in any of those areas. And lastly, everybody listening to me right now can help fund a movement of millions of Christians that will pray, vote, and engage ongoing. We're supported by people just like you that every month or every year invest in this ministry, their hard-earned dollars, their treasure, their heart. We thank you so much. Please be a part and give at christiansengage.org. Thank you so much to our partners at The Stream. Thanks for sharing this podcast every week. We so appreciate you. Also, Edify app with Christian Post. Thank you for having us part of your podcast ministries. Christians Engage is a ministry of Family Policy Alliance Foundation, and together around the country, we are mobilizing Christians to pray, vote, and engage. We love you. We'll see you back next week.